A 17-year-old boy races to save a stranger's life. Seconds later, he's handcuffed, treated like a criminal in his own community. But what happens next will shake the entire city. Stay with us. The city street buzzed with the usual rush-hour traffic, the golden light of sunset casting long shadows across the pavement. Suddenly, a loud screech of tires cut through the noise. A silver sedan spun out of control, slamming hard into the curb before coming to a violent stop in the middle of the intersection. From the scattering crowd, a teenager in a gray hoodie sprinted forward without hesitation. His name was Jaylen. 17 years old, determined eyes set against the chaos unfolding around him. Without a second thought, he dropped to his knees beside an elderly woman sprawled unconscious on the sidewalk, a thin trickle of blood trailing from her temple. "Somebody call 911! Call an ambulance, now!" Jaylen shouted, his voice steady but urgent. He gently tilted the woman's head to the side to clear her airway, checked for breathing, and pulled off his hoodie to cover her shivering body. Most bystanders froze in place, unsure, fearful, content to watch but not act. Moments later, the wail of sirens pierced the air, growing louder with each heartbeat. A black and white police cruiser roared up and screeched to a halt, kicking up dust from the curb. Relief flickered across Jaylen's face. Help had arrived. Or so he thought. Without warning, 2 officers burst from the car, hands already hovering near their weapons. "Step away from the woman! Hands in the air!" one officer barked. Startled, Jaylen raised his hands slowly, but before he could explain, he was grabbed, shoved hard against the pavement, and forced into handcuffs. The steel bit into his wrists, cold and unforgiving. The woman he had fought to help still lay motionless beside him, while cameras from stunned onlookers began recording every second, capturing the image of a black teen, arrested not for a crime, but for an act of compassion. Jaylen Carter wasn't your typical 17-year-old. While most kids his age spent their weekends gaming or scrolling through endless social feeds, Jaylen had bigger dreams. Dreams stitched together by late nights studying and weekend volunteer shifts at the local community clinic. His mother, a fierce civil rights attorney, had taught him from a young age that knowledge and kindness could be powerful forms of resistance. Jaylen carried those lessons with him every day, tucked right between his love for track and field and his quiet obsession with becoming a doctor someday. He lived just a few blocks from the scene of the accident, in a working-class neighborhood where cracked sidewalks told stories of a city that had long neglected its promises. Still, Jaylen loved his community. He loved the old men who played dominoes at the park, the corner store lady who snuck him extra candy when he was younger, and the families who, like his, fought hard for a better future. On that particular afternoon, Jaylen had just finished a grueling tutoring session at the library. His sneakers pounded rhythmically against the pavement as he jogged the few blocks home, earbuds blasting Kendrick Lamar, when he caught sight of the crash. Without hesitation, he'd ripped the headphones out of his ears and sprinted toward the wreckage. Because that's who Jaylen was. Someone who ran toward trouble when others froze. And for that, within minutes, he would find himself face down on the ground, handcuffed and treated like a criminal. The roughness of the handcuffs dug into Jaylen's wrists as he struggled to make sense of what was happening. He gasped, not from fear, but from the sheer shock of betrayal. He had helped, and now he was treated like a suspect. "Please," Jaylen managed to say, his voice shaking but firm. "I was helping her. She was hurt. I didn't do anything." But the officers didn't listen. One of them, Officer Reynolds, a burly man with mirrored sunglasses and a permanent scowl, barked, "Save it for the station, kid." As Jaylen was hauled upright, the gathering crowd started to murmur, restless. A woman in a business suit, clutching her phone in one hand, shouted, "He didn't do anything wrong. He was helping her." Another man, standing behind a parked car, whispered loudly to his friend, "This is messed up. Somebody's got to film this." And film it they did. Several bystanders now had their phones pointed squarely at the unfolding scene, recording every second, shaky hands, angry voices, the flashing red and blue lights washing over Jaylen's stunned face. Meanwhile, the injured woman was being lifted onto a stretcher by paramedics. She stirred weakly, her voice barely a whisper. Jaylen turned his head as much as the officers would allow, desperate for someone, anyone, to listen. "Ask her! Ask the lady! I helped her!" But his pleas were ignored. One of the officers turned to a middle-aged white man standing nearby, a man Jaylen hadn't even noticed before, and asked, "Did you see what happened?" The man, shifting uncomfortably under the weight of the crowd's stares, hesitated for a beat too long before muttering, Yeah, I think that kid did something." That was all the officers needed. No further questions, no investigation, no second chances, just the rustle of a body being forced into the back of a squad car and the heavy click of the door slamming shut. As the cruiser pulled away, the woman's faint voice could barely be heard over the chaos. He helped me." But by then, Jaylen was already gone. And the first of many videos capturing the injustice was already uploading to the internet, set to ignite a firestorm Jaylen could never have imagined. Inside the back of the squad car, Jaylen sat stiffly, the handcuffs cutting into his skin every time he shifted. The windows were cracked just enough that he could hear the angry voices outside, but none of them seemed to reach the officers inside the vehicle. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear of guilt, but from the sheer injustice of it all. He had done nothing wrong. He had helped. From the front seat, he could hear Officer Reynolds grumble, "Always the same story. Play the hero and claim innocence." Jaylen clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms, forcing himself not to explode. He knew, because his mother had taught him, that reacting with anger would only make things worse. In their eyes, any resistance would be proof of guilt. The police car idled at the curb while more officers arrived on scene. One officer, younger, Latino, badge reading Torres, hesitated when he glanced toward the squad car. He walked slowly toward Officer Reynolds. "You sure about this?" Torres asked under his breath, eyeing the group of bystanders who were now actively filming, their phones raised high like torches. Reynolds scoffed. "Guy over there ID'd him. Good enough for me." Torres didn't look convinced. He shifted awkwardly, glancing once at Jaylen, who locked eyes with him through the rearview mirror. For a moment, just a flicker, Jaylen saw doubt, even discomfort, in the younger officer's face. But it passed. Torres turned away, swallowed by the system that demanded obedience over justice. Meanwhile, on the sidewalk, the woman Jaylen had helped was now fully conscious, struggling to lift her head. Paramedics steadied her, and a news crew that had caught wind of the commotion was setting up across the street. Inside the car, Jaylen stared down at the scuffed toes of his sneakers, shame burning his cheeks. Not because he had done something wrong, but because even doing the right thing had made him a target. Outside, the crowd grew louder. Chants began to ripple. "Let him go! He's innocent!" Hashtags started trending online as Jaylen did nothing, wrong and helping, while black. And somewhere, amidst the noise and flashing lights, Jaylen realized this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every kid who had ever been taught to do good, only to be punished for the color of their skin. And Jaylen Carter, 17 years old, bruised but not broken, made a silent vow. This time he wasn't going to stay silent. The squad car hadn't moved yet. More units were arriving, blocking off the street like a crime scene, even though the only crime was kindness. From his spot in the back seat, Jaylen watched helplessly as the paramedics continued tending to the elderly woman. She sat now, a blanket draped around her shoulders, confusion etched across her wrinkled face. Finally, an officer, not Reynolds, but a different one with softer eyes, crouched beside her. He spoke gently, almost too softly for Jaylen to hear. The woman shook her head vigorously, her voice weak but clear. "No, no, he saved me. That boy, he pulled me out of the street." The officer blinked, frowning. "You're sure, ma'am?" "He helped me. He helped me breathe." Her words were fragmented, exhausted, but there was no mistaking the truth. Across the street, the growing crowd erupted into louder chants. More news crews arrived, microphones pointed toward anyone willing to speak. Video after video was being uploaded, footage showing Jaylen rushing to help, footage showing him being slammed into handcuffs moments later. Inside the squad car, Jaylen couldn't hear every word, but he caught enough, whispers passing through the crowd like wildfire. "She said he helped her. They got it all wrong. They better let that boy go." Officer Torres, standing nearby, shifted uncomfortably. His radio crackled with a message. "Witness statements contradict initial accusation. Review immediately." Torres tapped Officer Reynolds on the arm, voice low but urgent. "Sir, we need to reassess. We might have arrested the wrong person." Reynolds' jaw clenched so tightly his face turned red. "He fits the damn description," Reynolds muttered, refusing to look back at the car. But it was too late. The crowd knew. The internet knew. The city was starting to know. Injustice, once hidden behind closed doors, was now playing out live on thousands of screens. Jaylen leaned his forehead against the cool glass of the window, breathing deeply. Hope, fragile but growing, fluttered inside him. He wasn't alone anymore, and this time, he wasn't going to let the truth be buried. Back at the precinct, Jaylen sat silently in the cold, sterile interrogation room, his hands now free, but his wrists still aching from the cuffs. Across from him, Officer Reynolds shuffled papers, refusing to meet Jaylen's eyes. The door creaked open, and in walked a woman in a sharp navy suit, heels clicking like gunshots against the tile floor. It was his mother, Angela Carter. Jaylen's chest tightened with a mixture of relief and shame. He hadn't wanted her to see him like this, vulnerable, humiliated. But her face showed no pity, only fire. She placed a stack of documents on the table, pulling out a business card and sliding it across to the officers present. "Angela Carter, civil rights attorney, and as of this moment, you're all on notice." Reynolds scoffed, but Jaylen caught the flicker of fear behind his bravado. Angela sat beside her son, straightened her blazer, and said calmly, "You detained a minor without probable cause. You ignored witness statements. You violated his civil rights, and you're about to find out what real justice looks like." The officers tried to backpedal, murmuring about misunderstandings and procedural errors, but Angela wasn't having it. She demanded the immediate release of Jaylen. She demanded the incident report, and she demanded access to every body cam recording from the scene. When the officers hesitated, she pulled out her phone and began dialing, not the local news, not the police chief, but the mayor's office. It turned out Angela Carter had friends in high places, and she wasn't afraid to use them. By the end of the meeting, Jaylen was officially released, his record wiped clean before it could even be tainted. But that wasn't enough. Not for Jaylen. Not anymore. In the days that followed, the videos of his arrest spread like wildfire. Major news outlets picked up the story. Civil rights organizations rallied behind him. Jaylen, once reluctant to speak, found his voice. He stood on courthouse steps, microphone shaking slightly in his hands, and told the world, "I was taught that when someone needs help, you help. I didn't expect to be punished for doing the right thing. But if standing up for what's right makes me a target, then I'm proud to wear that target." His words, raw and powerful, resonated across the country. Kids wore t-shirts with his face on them. The hashtag #StandWithJaylen trended for days. Even celebrities tweeted support, calling him a true hero. And through it all, Jaylen stayed grounded. attending every rally, every panel discussion, every youth meeting, not as a victim, but as a leader. He refused to let the system break him. Instead, he became a symbol that maybe, just maybe, change was still possible. The city of Fairview had seen protests before, but nothing quite like this. By the end of the week, the steps of City Hall were flooded with demonstrators. Students, parents, activists, even off-duty nurses and teachers, all chanting Jaylen's name. Handmade signs waved in the air. Helping is not a crime. Hashed justice for Jaylen. We are all Jaylen. News vans lined the block. Every local station, and some national ones, broadcasted live. Angela Carter moved swiftly, filing a civil rights lawsuit against the Fairview Police Department, citing unlawful detainment, racial profiling, and emotional distress. The city tried to settle quietly, hoping to make it all disappear with a check and a non-disclosure agreement. But Jaylen refused. He didn't want money. He wanted change. At the press conference announcing the lawsuit, Jaylen stood at the podium, a little taller now, his voice steadier. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about every kid who's ever been judged by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. It's about building a future where helping someone doesn't make you a suspect." His words rippled outward, echoed back by the claps and cheers of the crowd. Meanwhile, the officers involved were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Body cam footage, reluctantly released by the department, showed everything the public already knew. Jaylen had been helping, not harming. There had been no probable cause. There had been no threat, except the one imagined by bias. The Fairview police chief, under immense pressure, issued a formal apology at a televised town hall meeting. "We failed Jaylen Carter. We failed our community." But apologies weren't enough. Protesters demanded reform, mandatory bias training, independent review boards, community policing initiatives. City council meetings turned into battlegrounds, with citizens showing up in record numbers to demand real accountability. Jaylen attended every single meeting he could, often speaking first, always speaking truth. Some nights he went home exhausted, drained from reliving his trauma over and over again. But he never stopped. He couldn't. Because Jaylen understood now. Survival wasn't enough. He wanted transformation. Months passed. The lawsuits dragged through the courts, the protests became less frequent, and the media's attention shifted to newer stories. But for Jaylen, the journey hadn't ended. It had only evolved. Through the noise, he kept working. He helped launch a local youth initiative, Project Open Hands, designed to teach CPR, first aid, and crisis response to teens from underserved communities. He spoke at high schools and colleges, sometimes in gymnasiums too big for his still-growing voice, telling kids that kindness was not weakness, that standing up was an act of courage. He still ran every morning, past the spot where the crash had happened, past the corner where he'd once been slammed to the ground. But now, when he jogged by, people waved. Cars honked in support. Sometimes strangers would shout from across the street, "Thank you, Jaylen!" The city had changed. Not completely, not perfectly, but undeniably. Conversations that had been buried under decades of silence were now out in the open. And Jaylen? He had been offered scholarships from universities across the country. Medical schools wrote letters inviting him to apply. But Jaylen took his time. He wasn't in a rush to escape his city. He wanted to help fix it first. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the streets shimmered gold, Jaylen sat on the worn bench outside the community center, hoodie pulled over his head, notebook in hand. Across from him, a younger boy, maybe 10 or 11, nervously approached, a first aid manual tucked under his arm. "Are you the guy from TV?" the boy asked, eyes wide with hope. Jaylen smiled, set his notebook down, and nodded. "Yeah, but more importantly, I'm here to teach you how to help." The boy grinned, sitting beside him. And in that simple moment, no cameras, no microphones, no hashtags, Jaylen understood something deeper than all the speeches, the lawsuits, the headlines. Real change didn't start in courtrooms. It started right there, on the cracked sidewalks of a forgotten city, one open hand at a time.